guys.
You're front row, sir.
Yeah.
Speech.
Sure. Lots of room.
Deputy.
It's okay.
Okay.
There you go, you got a friend.
I'll sit next to you, buddy. I'm always got it. I'm sure I got some of the.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Pursuant. I'll second. Second by Councilmember Conrad. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Is anybody here for community comment this evening? Yeah, all right. Presentations and reports. All right, this is one of our favorite meetings because we get to recognize some really important folks in the city. So up first is the Greg Osterdyke Community Service Award. And up to join me, we always kind of tag team this, is none other than Lori Osterdyke. Welcome back to Carver.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
So good to be here. Oh, wait.
Is the light green?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. As many of us know, the Greg Osterdyke Community Service Award is named after Greg Osterdyke, who is the former mayor of Carver. In 2019, shortly after Greg passed away, we spent a lot of time thinking about how we could honor Greg's memory. And it came up with the idea of naming what was just then the Community Service Award after Greg. Felt that this was the perfect way to honor Greg's memory. Because community service was opened in 2014, he was also a Lions Club member. He served on the Saints Foundation at St. Francis Hospital. He led the Steamboat Days Volunteer Committee and was very involved with Guardian Angels Church and so much more. The City of Carver is a better place because of Greg's many contributions. The winner of the 2025 Greg Osterdyke Community Service Award is a tremendous representation of Greg's outstanding, selfless service to our community. It is now my pleasure to hand off to Lori Osterdyke, Greg's wife, who will tell you more about the 2025 Greg Osterdyke Community Service Award honoree.
I am excited to announce the winner of the 2025 Greg Osterdyke Community Service Award is Carver on the Minnesota. Carver on the Minnesota is a civic nonprofit corporation dedicated to the support of Carver, its historic district, its community events, and its people. Their extensive community service is evident through their numerous efforts to promote and recognize the city's history. These initiatives include organizing events, coordinating fundraising, overseeing the development of John Walter's book on Carver's history, and launching the recent Carver Stories Oral History Project, which will provide a recorded history of our community. These all speak to the community service of what Greg was about. Congratulations, Carver on the Minnesota, and thank you so much for everything that you've done for our community.
All right, let's give you guys the award here. We're gonna have to get real cozy here. Some of you might be more front row material.
We'll try it this way. We don't know how else to get in here.
Here, why don't you guys hold that?
Okay, I can see Kayla.
Find a window. You can't.
Eric, you could go over. Lori, you could fill next to Eric. Keep going. Eric, 3 more inches that way. Lori, 3 more inches.
Got it? It's like choir all over again. Everybody find a window.
Yes, I can see all of you. Okay, smile. Lori, tilt. Give me your head that. Yes. You do what I needed. All right, eyes open. Good job. Great. Only one? I mean, I took like one.
Congratulations.
Do you want more? Do you want Joel?
Oh, yeah, what? Do you want to do just you guys?
Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, I'll show someone all over the place. This one is the correct answer. No. The next one.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, this one's Brian's. Now do whatever you want.
Don't challenge this group that way. Thank you.
Congratulations, you guys. All right. Up next are our 2025 Employees of the Year. And this is one of the bigger honors that we bestow each year because this is an award that is given from employees to employees. So they're receiving this award from their peers. Kelly, I didn't see you. Hey. Up first, and then we have 2 categories for this. There is a full-time employee who receives the award and then a part-time employee who receives the award. So let's go first with the full-time employee. And the winner of the Full-Time Employee of the Year for 2025 is Caleb Kirchberg.
Smiley?
So, as Brent foreshadowed for us, Caleb has the nickname Smiley. And what I'm doing is I'm reading what your peers had to say about you. So, Caleb has the nickname Smiley, which is pretty clear right now. He's always smiling. It is infectious, and it makes the other workers feel good about the day ahead. He's a very dependable employee and a valued member of the team. Someone else said, Caleb always comes to work with a positive attitude and a big smile on his face. He's always willing to help out whenever he is needed and is willing to learn new things. He is hardworking and always dependable. And then finally, someone else said, when the utilities team and public services was in transition and short-staffed, Caleb stepped up with a positive attitude, was always available to lend a hand, and was eager to learn and contribute to the team. Congratulations, Caleb.
You are all off center. It's hard to find. Great.
Where do you want us to go? Here, that way?
Yeah, it's just that there was 3 over here. You know, these pictures are important. Big part of my job. Kayla, take 1 half second towards the receipt. Thank you.
All right, and then last but not least is Jason Showstedt. Did I butcher your last name? Okay. I just want to make sure that in your big moment I get it at least close. All right, Jason, this is what your peers had to say about you. Jason consistently demonstrates a positive attitude and is always prepared to fulfill his responsibilities on the fire department. He shows a strong willingness to learn new approaches and asks insightful questions. Moreover, Jason exhibits kindness and compassion towards victims during emergency situations. Despite personal challenges faced by Jason and his family this year, he has remained humble, considerate, and dedicated to his work, carrying out his duties with unwavering professionalism and a positive demeanor. And then another one of your colleagues said, I appreciate Jason as a firefighter and a teammate for several reasons. He is hardworking, humble, helpful, and patient. Jason brings a very calming presence on the fire scene or a medical call. I appreciate his communication skills and his sense of humor. He does whatever needs to be done around the station, and he does it with good cheer. Jason consistently shows up for our Carver community, and we are lucky to have him as part of the fire department. Congratulations, Jason.
Do you have any family members you'd like a picture with before you go? Do you want any other version? I probably can't get the whole group, but is there?
Oh, yeah.
Do you want any other version?
That'd be awesome. Can't wait.
Yeah.
Get an L pile out here.
Let's try it.
Yeah. Stand way back.
You guys can use the dais too if you need a third tier. Yeah, that's not locked.
Everybody in our group still gonna need to do it.
Front row material.
I'm front row material.
You got
Rookies up top.
Can't see us, that's fine.
Makes them easier to airbrush out later.
Almost, it was so quiet.
I can't see your mouth.
That's a first.
No, I was talking just the Now I can't see you at all.
Oh, man, there we go.
There you go. Okay, here we go. Kaylin, this is a much better picture. So you got the good one.
Do you need a new phone? Is that what that means?
This was the first year.
I made it first time. Cry every year. Didn't cry. We started crying now, talking about crying though.
Yeah, right.
You can watch it on YouTube.
I'm just so glad I thought the fire department was here for our.
They were. You guys say that you were here for Carver on the Minnesota, please. All right, we have no public hearings this evening. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilmember Sayer,
Second?
second by Councilmember Pasco. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Business items, 8.1, the United Properties Industrial Project. Ms. Smith.
I was busy being a little bossy, so I just need a second. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are reviewing 2 requests for the 212 West Business Center. So we're looking at preliminary plat and a rezoning request. So some context of where we are for project location. We're at the corner of Jonathan Carver Parkway and Levi Griffin Road. So we're directly east of Lakeview Industries, near Fleet Farm, and again near the intersection of County Road 11 and Levi Griffin Road. Address 12280 Jonathan Carver Parkway. Previously, we referred to it as a JCP Holdings piece, if that's familiar to you at all. You can see on the left the comprehensive plan is there. So you can see that the project is highlighted in purple or guided for commercial or industrial development, which this project meets the general intent of the comprehensive plan. We'll get into some of those details as we continue through the presentation. What is on the screen now is the site plan that the City Council has previously reviewed. So the proposed project is 2 industrial buildings, both at 189,000 square feet. There's a lot more additional details we know since the site plan was submitted to the city, so we'll go through some of those additional details. But in general, the proposed site layout has not drastically changed, continues to be 2 buildings with required infrastructure. A proposed rendering for the site, which is also new since the site plan has been submitted, so a general look of what the 2 buildings will look like. And then digging into some of the nitty-gritty information. Again, we're slated for 2 industrial buildings, both at 189,000 square feet. The project will be phased, so both buildings are not likely to be constructed day 1. The proposed site plan and corresponding construction plans show over 550 parking stalls. The interior space to the buildings will feature high ceilings, space demising for multiple employers. So if someone needs the entire space, they could take it, or if 5 different users need smaller spaces, it could be demised into smaller spaces with flexible site layout and parking areas. The intended use for the site per United Properties is production, lab, research and development, warehousing, and distributing, which generally meets the intent of the city's industrial section of our city code. And then a couple nitty-gritty engineering things to think about is that this project does not propose access onto Jonathan Carver Parkway, so no impact to the county road. There is access from Levi Griffin Drive and Commerce Drive, and this project triggers the need for a signal at Levi Griffin and Commerce Drive, which is this general location here. So it'll be at Commerce, which is the first north-south street that impacts Levi Griffin Road. So it'll be directly east of Lakeview Industries, east of Fleet Farm, adjacent to the 212 West Business Center, so between Lakeview and the proposed project. On the screen now is the proposed site plan, so we're starting to dial into some of the details, but again, really consistent with that first site plan that we saw. There's substantial ponding on the west side of the site as well as the north, again, consistent with the 289,000 square foot buildings, but you start to see some access information for the site and how it just generally lays out. So you can see that there's the entrance on Levi Griffin Road as well as the full entrance on Commerce Drive, which was constructed with the Lakeview Industries project. This project has been kind of a long time coming. We've done several reviews, and then I'll give some information about what we've been working on. So you first reviewed a concept plan at your August 5th, 2024 meeting. We also moved through an annexation application request, so the property is within city limits, so we have land use control and jurisdiction, so we're able to make zoning decisions for the property. Based on the project size, an EAW was required, or an environmental assessment worksheet, which the City Council looked at and determined that an environmental impact statement was not required. So the EAW looked at all things for the project, both natural and built environment, so things like traffic, pollution, air quality, water need, and additional study from the EAW was not required based on the information that was provided from United Properties through that process. There's also been a TIF application, so the Planning Commission and City Council have moved through a TIF application process. And on August 21st of this year, so about a year after that first concept plan was seen by the City Council, the Planning Commission reviewed the project, held a public hearing, and offered a recommendation to this group. Some behind the scenes things that have been happening, there are several more, but soil remediation was a really big one. So if you saw any traffic on the site of moving large quantities of dirt, it was soil remediation, and then the building that was on site has been demolished since the last time you reviewed this project. So what took so long? It's not typical that the Planning Commission sees a project in August and then the City Council sees it in December. We usually try to keep those pretty tight, both to move things through the process, but also for staff knowledge. We were working through packet information and we had to dig in our brain a little bit to remember, like, oh yeah, that was a detail of this project that we need to keep thinking about. So this is not typical for a City Council to see a delay on a project like this, but there was some additional work that was required between when the Planning Commission saw it and the City Council did. So one piece of it is that Carver County, their highway department requested additional traffic information. So the information that was provided in the EAW, they requested some additional information. United Properties, being a good partner, completed the additional traffic study to provide the county with some additional accounts for some areas just outside of the project boundary. So Carver County now has the information that they've requested. We also heard at the Planning Commission in August about some concerns that an adjacent property owner had, and we took some time to pause and to think about stormwater throughout the entire area, so not just the United Properties site, but the Lakeview site, the Fleet Farm site, how the remainder of this area is going to develop. We took a pause, and we were really thoughtful about how stormwater would impact residents that are in the township but are now adjacent to city projects. So thinking about that relationship of, though they're not in the city, the way that our projects move and operate can impact their property. So thinking through stormwater was really important. We had a challenging trail conversation with United Properties and their engineer, trying to figure out where a trail could fit on this site, understanding that a north-south connection was really important along Jonathan Carver Parkway. And in general, it's just kind of a tricky site. There are, when we get into some more information about like landscaping, there's significant trees on the site that we really had to work through, that they're proposing to remove some trees that they couldn't replace because there simply wasn't room for it based on ponding that's required, wetland that's required, infrastructure that's required. So we came to a position on the trees that we had to make a decision of, if you can't put them on site, what do we do now? So we worked through these discussions with United Properties. I think we had some creative thinking, and we came to some conclusions that I think is a net positive for the entire group. So I'll talk through some of that as the presentation continues. But back to your council review. The first is the rezoning request. So anytime a project comes into city limits via annexation, the property is default zoned agriculture. So it goes to ag, knowing that the project is likely to develop, and the city is then required to make a rezoning request to the city council. So the request tonight is to go from agriculture to industrial, which, like I mentioned on one of the first slides, is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It showed purple on the map. So the zoning is consistent with the comp plan, and the proposed use is consistent with our industrial zoning district. So going back to what United Properties is proposing, the first four permitted uses in our zoning district are consistent with the users that they're proposing for the site. So things like manufacturing, assembly, warehousing, scientific research, and office and administrative facilities all fit really nicely into what they're looking to fill the space with. So no concerns related to the proposed use for the industrial zoning district or the proposed guidance that was in the comprehensive plan, which was a commercial industrial mix. The second request is the preliminary plat. So this one is a little bit confusing, that if you look at where the driveway for the former house that's been demolished is in there, it can get a little bit confusing of like, what's that street? It's just the former driveway. So that's not proposed as part of this project. It's just included in the preliminary plat. So this is the technical zoning document that allows the two lots to be split for the phasing of the plan, but it also shows things like easements, access into the site, how the site will generally lay out with wetlands, buffering, drainage and utility easements, et cetera. So again, the two requests before the Planning Commission are the rezoning, ag to industrial, and the preliminary plat, which is on the screen now. So some plan review highlights, which I called lowlights at the Planning Commission meeting, because some of these were tricky. They left us scratching our head a couple times. One of the big pieces was the trail along the property going north-south, essentially up to Victoria along Jonathan Carver Parkway or County Road 11. Typically on these projects, we can put a trail within the right-of-way, but in this stretch, County Road 11 is not improved, so there's not a curb gutter system. It's a ditch. So water moves into that ditch and moves along the property, which obviously you don't want a trail that's underwater in a ditch condition. So it was tricky to figure out where a trail could go on this property, knowing that this stretch is going to be improved someday. So we paused and said, are we okay if when this stretch is improved, we put the trail in then? What does it look like? Does the city hold money? What does that do to our trail plan? But not knowing how property north is going to develop, we thought it was really important to have it day one for construction, so folks are able to get north to that next property as it starts to develop, instead of having someone come back several years later to come back in, disturb folks that are using the site as its intended use to add a trail. So we worked through the trail condition, landscaping, tree removal and replacement, and then site remediation. So what ended up happening based on some iterations of the plan that we worked through with United Properties is that we ended up shifting the building 18 feet west. So the trail is going to be directly adjacent to infrastructure that's installed by United Properties along their parking lot. So this caused some parking stalls to be relocated. So it used to be 2 bays on the far east side. So there was bays of parking that would face Jonathan Carver Parkway. Anecdotally, that was not one of my favorite design choices that could have been made. So adding the trail here gave us the trail, but also limited the cars that would be facing Jonathan Carver Parkway in those parking bays. But we had some really interesting conversations with United Properties that those spaces are pretty coveted since it's pretty close to the area that traditionally would be the office. So folks are wanting to be as close as you can to that entrance when it's negative 10 degrees on a Minnesota day and you want to get in quickly. So we worked through that with the trail system, moving the buildings west, allowing a trail to be constructed north-south along Jonathan Carver Parkway or County Road 11. On the screen now is landscaping or tree removal. So on this site, if you remember when we were going through Lakeview, we had some challenges with Commerce Drive with some old growth trees that were in that area. So we had to be strategic about where Commerce Drive was placed, and some of those discussions came to be in this project as well. So the site obviously is going to be improved to a high level with the buildings at the scale that they are, with the required parking that will be there, as well as ponding. So buildings and infrastructure of this scale need to have obviously pretty aggressive ponding to be able to treat water that is on the site. But what that meant is that several areas of trees are going to be knocked out to allow for infrastructure or the ponding to take place. So we came to a conclusion with United Properties that they were not able to replace the trees that were removed on the site based on our zoning code. So they couldn't meet the equation that was necessary for replacement for the amount of trees that were being removed. So what do we do then? Do we plant trees somewhere else? What does that look like? Do we need trees in other locations? So we collectively sat down and we came up with a replacement calculation based on inches of trees or shrubs that would be replaced or removed. So in the end, United Properties came back with a revised landscape plan that created a more robust planting schedule. So they added additional trees and shrubs to lower that amount, but there still is an additional requirement that we were not able to meet on site. So what that meant is that United Properties and the city agreed to an equation that got us to about $11,000 that will be coming to the city for future tree landscape projects. So when we started to talk about this, it was about August-ish when the Planning Commission was looking at it, and we were starting to have conversations about emerald ash borer in town and what removal is going to look like and how we can't necessarily plan for it, that it's probably going to come through and sweep pretty quickly on some areas and unfortunately kill several trees in town. So when we figured out that there might be a way to mitigate some of that impact to the city with this project, it started to become really feasible for us to be able to say, it's not possible to add more trees or shrubs on this site, but it is possible to continue to impact the city's overall landscape tree program. So through, again, some partnership with United Properties, we got to a conclusion that works for both the city and United Properties through the planting plan. Site cleanup was really significant on this site. So Braun Intertech came out and did soil testing with demolition of the single-family home, and there was soil remediation that was required. So 3,100 cubic yards of contaminated soil was removed from the site and transported to a disposal facility. So what that looks like is that Braun would remove the impacted soils, and then they would go out and test to see if their margins were clean, and if they weren't, they continued to remove soil from the site. And that took, I think, more than what anyone was anticipating based on the amount of contamination that was there.
What was it contaminated with?
Petroleum.
If I remember correctly, there was the previous owner had an underground
Fuel tank.
that
Yeah.
had been leaking systemically for many, many years. It's what we were informed of in Planning Commission.
Yeah. So all of that to say, it's really unfortunate that the soil was that contaminated and that it wasn't under the city's jurisdiction. It's not typical that someone goes out and tests the soil under their house. But I think the conversation that we had related to it was deeply impactful. Just the recognition of like, yes, that soil was contaminated. But also now we can say that the site is clean based on the work that Braun completed to get to the site to a shovel-ready point for United Properties. But I think it's important just to acknowledge that for folks that were participated in the public hearing, that the soil on that site, it was contaminated. But with development of this project, it was cleaned up. So Braun, again, continued to test soils throughout the process, and they came back with clean margins once the soil had been removed and brought to a disposal facility.
Erin, I have a question. Who paid for that?
So it was I might be speaking out of turn for United Properties, but it was the previous owner of the site. And then they are seeking some state grant funding for that soil contamination project.
Thank you.
Yeah. Another detail that we think about is light pollution. So it's hard to see on the screen, but there are green circles on there that show where the lights are going to be throughout the parking lot. And you can see based on the map that the impact does not leave the site. So it's based on foot candles and the amount of wattage or lumen energy that's put down onto the site. But again, not impactful to anyone outside of the site, but the parking lot and building will be lit for security and safety for people visiting the site. So again, in August, we held the public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting, and we received comments from an adjacent property owner. They had some conversation and discussion with both city staff, the development team, and the Planning Commission on 3 pretty specific areas. So process, land use, and zoning was first, remediation of the site, and then stormwater was the follow-up for the third. So some conclusions that we drew together is that process, land use, and zoning, I don't think we'll likely come to full consensus, usually with the community on what future land use should be or could be. But based on our approved plans, the comprehensive plan and our zoning code, the project does meet the intent of both of those documents. So we had an opportunity to talk through what the property looked like 30 years ago when the property owner lived there, and how the market has changed, how Carver has changed, how development has changed, how construction has changed. So just some general feedback. I wouldn't say that it was a conversation that we could reach consensus, but we both were able to share our opinions, share the comprehensive plan, share the zoning code, how all of that impacts land use decisions that we make. Remediation was the next, just understanding it's tricky to live adjacent to a site that publicly comes out was really contaminated, and what that can do to someone who has obviously been living on the site adjacent to it for many years. So we shared the information completed by Braun. That study was included in the Planning Commission packet. We talked through it with the property owner. So again, just recognition that the site did require significant remediation, but at this point the site is clean and ready for construction. The next is stormwater. So staff, that's where we took kind of that big pause, and we needed to think about it a little bit differently than how we had been just moving through the review process. So staff met with the CCWMO, or the Carver County Water Management Organization, and the property owner. And we asked the property owner, like, what does success look like for you? How does this change you? How does it change your property? What happens in a heavy rain? What does it look like? And we really dug in trying to figure out how water moved across that site and then what happened to it. So before the 212 expansion, it was a ditch system, and water just sheeted off the site into a full ditch. When 212 was installed, there was a culvert that centralized the water moving from the site from a full ditch system running the length of the property to one specific location. And in that culvert system, it may not be adequately sized for the amount of water that needs to move under 212. So what that meant is that water was impacting the property owner's property in a way that we didn't think was advantageous for development or for him to use the property long term. So we developed a long-term solution with the future Commerce Drive extension. So Commerce is the street that runs north-south at Levi Griffin, where that signal will be installed, like I mentioned earlier, where we will channel stormwater from recent projects as well as this project, as well as the 212 West Business Center. That's going to require coordination with MnDOT under 212 to figure out how the water moves, how we can continue to be successful. And we're anticipating construction and development of that plan in 2026. I think the most meaningful step in that process that we had is that we had the property owner back, and we were able to explain that to them and have them walk away thinking that we were acting in everyone's best interest, as opposed to just working for one project. We looked at it at a more holistic view to figure out how water was moving, what impact it was making. This is so cheesy, but if it continues to move the way that it goes, I think we can count it as a pretty big success story that we were able to look at this project, but also take a step back and pause to say, water's impactful in this area. There's township residents, there's city residents, but there's a responsibility to make sure that we are mindful of everyone in the area, not just how one specific property is developing. Okay, that was a really long way to get you back to the zoning request. But again, the zoning request is that the default zoning of the property is ag today since it was recently annexed into the city of Carver. The request is to go to the industrial district. The permitted uses are on the screen now, and a review of the preliminary plat, which is also on the screen. Members of the United Properties team are here if you'd like to invite them up for discussion or comment or any information that they can provide outside, but I will open it up for discussion.
All right, questions, comments?
So from the time we originally had a discussion with you about this, the only change I see is some refinements on the exterior. We talked about potential tenants. Has that changed? Do you have anybody lined up at this point, or is it still just build, suit whoever comes in?
Will you come up? Will you introduce yourself first?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you to come up first.
Tap to make sure the green light's on.
There, got it, got it. Hello, I'm Connor McCarthy. I'm part of the development team at United Properties. The first night that we were here was August 5th, 2024, and I was in the hospital with my baby being born. So that was 16 months ago, and I know that exactly. So I wasn't here, but you're right. There's been very few changes. The trail has had a bit of an impact. The landscaping plans have just been refined. The exterior of the buildings, I think the first time we were here, we maybe had examples, and now we actually have a proposed design for the project. We don't have any tenants identified yet, but part of what we're working on right now actively is figuring out who's going to be occupying these spaces. That when we do identify a tenant, might spur construction of one or both of the buildings. But the key to us is to just deliver a modernized look here, and so this rendering really depicts. The building's intended to be functional for several types of uses. The zoning district does a good job defining what's allowable here, but really anything from warehousing to office space to production to med tech. It's important that we have a design that's open to all sorts of things. So we're really excited to be here. It's been a while, and I think you'll probably still see us one more time with a development agreement and a final plat, but so yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Go ahead. I'm sure someone is going to ask things that I have on my mind.
I have a question, a little bit for Aaron, and also just to see if the council has any thoughts on the sidewalk. Only because we've been talking about trails versus sidewalks, so I see that it's a concrete sidewalk. I'm fine with that, but I just thought we go more towards
It's
a
a
trail which is wider.
bituminous trail.
Meaning like gravel?
No,
Or
asphalt.
Asphalt,
Mhm.
okay.
Which will tie into our system. So similar along Quick Trip, the United Properties piece south, it'll
Okay.
be consistent with
So it'll
that
be
trail.
consistent as far as the width and?
Correct, yes, and construction type.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have more questions? You can.
Yeah,
So-
Aaron, go ahead.
You had the floor.
I don't know, but what else? What else?
So 2 stages, construction timeline between the 2 stages. You said a tenant might spur a
Yeah.
change there.
Yeah, we typically like to see the first building at about half occupancy before we construct the next building.
Okay. When you do that, does it, no design change in the second building, so
No,
it'll
they're-
follow?
They're identical to each other.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I only ask that because sometimes the materials become unavailable. There's nothing here that's unique that you're not gonna be able to source. We have that, different city experience that. How about just design of the building? You know, we think about energy efficiency, we're considering our public works building as maybe the first rooftop that employs solar or something like that. Anything in your design, just out of curiosity, that
Yeah, we, as a company, actually have a dedicated person to sustainability. And so
Mhm.
what Janelle helps us with is she helps us through the XL Energy Design Assistance Program. So as we design these buildings, we ensure that we're at, like, we're exceeding at least code standards. But a lot of what these buildings are constructed with actually are with reused sustainable materials. So Fabcon plant in Savage, Shakopee, actually is the provider to the wall panels that make up most of the building. That said, we also do business in Texas and Colorado, and so we've kind of, as an organization, decided that we're going to really track utility usage and some of the things that Denver County requires of our projects, and so we do that across the board of all of our buildings now. So everything from water usage to trash disposal, we require our tenants track that, and we document all that information to ensure that these buildings are operating sustainably.
nothing else.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Chrissy,
So I know that you could have a multitude of uses coming in here, but one of the ones that you've named is office space. The building's pretty devoid of windows, so is this going to even lend itself to that in general, or is because it doesn't have a lot, you're actually pushing for a more tech or some kind of
Yeah.
manufacturing type?
Yeah, the office that we envision for this space is a smaller component of what a tenant might use the space for. So if these buildings are each about 180,000 feet, you know, they may be 2 tenants or 3 tenants, but most of the space that these tenants will use it for is either warehouse or some production or manufacturing type of use. But each of these tenants will have at least some small component of office within it, typically focused on the corners where there is more glass for the daylight. So it won't be just like a pure office use, but 99 times out of 100, each tenant will have some sort of office component to it.
Okay, this is not a council request, this is just a person, give them some more windows. But my only other real question here then is, when we're talking about the $11,000 for tree planting, are there stipulations on that and where we can spend it, use it in town? I know we talked about EAB, but does it specifically have to stay in an area, or are we going to put it in kind of a pot and use it where we need it?
It needs to stay specific to tree removal or tree planting,
Okay,
but it would be community-wide
okay.
on our property.
Thank you for the footnote.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Kayla, could you pull up the plat that we're working off of? You showed both a plat with and without a slip right off of Levi Griffin Road. We're talking about it without at this point?
So the site plan had the slip right, the
Uh-huh.
plat doesn't have.
Okay.
Does that feel right?
Yeah.
There's a site plan.
Okay, so that's the site plan, not the plat.
Mhm.
So theoretically, there will still be a slip right.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
I like the creativity with the trees. I think EAB is gonna be a huge thing in our community, and having some money, first priority would see those trees replanted on your property, but I really appreciate the creativity and the great problem solving on that, so thank you guys for that. Well, and thank you guys for being willing to
Yeah.
compromise with us on that. You mentioned trash, and then I looked to see where it is, but can you kind of explain, are they kind of enclosed trash containers? I see where they'll be in the buildings.
Yeah,
Do you want the site plan up?
yeah, sure, that'd be helpful.
And council, in the packet, I'm on page 13,
So.
and it's letter O.
So, when we lease spaces, we require our tenants store their trash indoors. That said, it's often that tenants have a very particular way that they like to use their space, and in which case we construct trash enclosures on the outside of the building. So it's small to see in the scale of the picture, but
Yep.
near the center of the buildings, I think there's a few different sets of trash enclosures.
Good here.
Yeah, just, can I walk up there and point to them?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Their letter O.
Yeah, so here are examples
Uh-huh.
of trash enclosures.
Okay.
And some of those will be designed when we come in with final designs, and we may put 1, 2, or 3 in the rear of each building, kind of dependent on how many tenants there are.
Okay, but those are all enclosed in the building. There's a
Yeah.
wall there, and I won't see it.
Correct,
If I'm sitting in the
they're,
parking lot.
they're constructed with the same building material on the sides, and then there's like a gate in front of it, so you wouldn't
Okay.
see the trash bins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Super. And you said, Eric asked about the question of identifying a tenant for the second building, but will you not be shovels on the ground until you get some leases signed for the first building?
It's to be determined. We hope to be under construction in 2026 construction season, so May, June, July-ish timeline.
Right.
But we're just, monitoring competitive space nearby. There's some vacancy just to the north in Chaska Creek, where Imris and some of those other buildings were recently developed, so we're watching that very closely. But we hope to start on the first building in '26.
Okay. And for the TIF, the time is ticking on that, correct?
September.
Is there not a? Okay. Okay. That is all my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 10-2025, rezoning property from agriculture to industrial for the 212 West Business Center.
Motion by Councilmember Conrad,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 147-25, approving preliminary plot for the 212 West Business Center.
And I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Sayer, second by Councilmember Pasco. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Through another step, congratulations. All right, up next, we have the 2026 budget and property tax levy. Shooty. You're missing the best part, you guys.
It's a school night.
Great excuse. Great excuse. Thanks for coming. Right? Look at the time, guys.
It's like the grand finale. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. So tonight we are here to adopt a couple resolutions, and we need to certify the 2026 budget and levy to the county no later than the end of the month. So the city began our budgeting process back in May and June. You've seen our budget presentation a few times, but I had a really fun finding when I was going through the benefits, entering those benefits last week. So we do have a couple different scenarios tonight where there was a savings of about $56,000 with two large savings with families opting out under the city provided health insurance program. And those employees were 100% general fund. So we have scenario A, which is maintain. The levy and the budget are adopted as presented. The $56,000 would be kind of like a reserve. You know how things come up throughout the year, and those funds may go toward any number of projects identified by City Council at a later date, or as has been identified the past 2 years in the long-term plan, we use the additional funds to build fund balance in the general fund. Scenario B, reduce. Reduce the levy and budget by that $56,000. That reduction would reduce the levy from 5.45 $5,458,433 to $5,401,775, dropping the levy increase from 11.38 to 10.23. The impact to the average valued home would decrease by $22 annually, from $1,939 to $1,917. That's about $1.83 a month. So I've presented both scenarios for the budget and the levy. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I have also attached the truth and taxation presentation. I can go over that again as well. But I do have all of the information in front of you. I can pull up any of the scenarios that you'd like. Just happy to take any direction that you'd like.
I personally am not feeling like you need to do truth and taxation again. Does anyone disagree with me?
No, we have seen it many times.
And I was going to say, for the tens and tens of folks who are watching at home, you can take a look at the full truth and taxation presentation that was at our last council meeting on December 1st. And kind of to what Christy said, we have probably seen that no fewer than, we've been talking about it all summer, the building blocks for the budget, and we've seen it at least 3 times, so. Okay, we have a decision to make, council. I think, where I'm at, I think reduce seems to make a lot of sense. I like the idea of using the fund balance to save for a rainy day and to preserve the fund balance in scenario A, but, for me, it feels like scenario B is my preferred method. Christy, thoughts?
I agree. The fact that we're able to decrease this by over a whole percentage is great. I know that it came kind of by happenstance. We've been working hard on this budget, but I am all behind scenario B. One thing we talked about, well, the average home would save this much, but we know that from looking at some of our past spreadsheets that what that average home really jumps around, right? So what maybe, $21, for one home, maybe $100 for another. So I am very much behind going with scenario B to reduce.
I have a question on the scenario B. It says it's the estimate for the $22 difference. And we've seen those tables where it's the formula that I don't try to understand. How sometimes it looks like somebody should pay less, but they end up paying more some years.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible?
Yeah, it's all based on, their market value and then also their homestead exclusion.
Oh, that's right.
So yes, that the formula and whether or not they have the same increase as another taxpayer. So it's all determined based on the assessed value and what the assessor determines their increase to be for that year.
So we can't say everyone's would be reduced.
Absolutely not.
Just an estimate that, okay.
Correct.
I want to clarify that. But otherwise, I think for balancing what's right for the city, what's right for the citizens, I prefer scenario B.
Kayla?
I also prefer scenario B for all of the reasons stated. There's nothing really to add.
Okay. Eric?
So again, thank you to staff for going through the numbers and going through them again and again and again, and the work to even identify new healthcare providers, right? Because that's the process that keeps the cost low, and in this case lowered. We had some people not take advantage of that, but we do that. We take an annual look at what those things cost, and the ability to return that in a 1% reduction. I'm really happy that we get to vote on this. It's not a lot, but I think it's the right choice to choose scenario B and provide with everything that we are doing, provide that little bit of a credit back. So scenario B.
All right. I echo sorry.
I'm sorry, I was gonna make the motion, sorry,
No,
Courtney.
I
was like-
echo Eric's kudos of thanks for like getting this down, and I know that we've had a couple of blips, and I know that the health insurance is always the last minute thing, and we kind of figure out who's there. I appreciate all the hard work you put into this budget.
Thank you.
Well done.
Should I go now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 148-25, Scenario B, certifying the 2026 property tax levy.
Got a motion by Councilmember Conrad,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
All right, well,
All right.
we have a second
done.
motion, right? Don't we need to?
Yep.
Do you want?
All right, so motion to adopt Resolution 149-25, Scenario B, approving the 2026 budget.
Motion by Councilmember Pershman,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Thanks for catching that second one here. I was gonna just go back to the work session items. Okay, so with that, there were a small handful of work session items that we didn't get accomplished in time of our work session. So we're gonna go back to that, and I always give this caveat, these are the more preliminary discussions we have on topics. These are generally the first time we're seeing these ideas, and these are our kitchen table conversations, if you will. So with that, let's go back into talking about the commission review and strategic, no. Yes.
Yes,
yeah.
commission
So,
review.
Commission review and strategic plan. Okay, apologies, I kind of forgot where we were. So I think, why don't we just kind of resume that conversation? We were talking about
Are we talking about appointments?
Parks Group versus, yeah,
Mayor, can I just kind of tee it up again for those maybe watching?
that'd probably be better than
Yeah.
what I just did.
So I'm just gonna bifurcate these and just talk about the Parks Advisory Group. So there are two areas within the kind of the commission or advisory group structure that the council identified as a part of their strategic plan as far as like, is this still working? Can it be adjusted to be made better, et cetera? And so the first area was the Parks Advisory Group. So a number of years ago, the city moved away from a formal Parks Commission, primarily due to kind of a lack of new business and kind of routine meetings to a Parks Advisory Group in 2023. That group met a number of times and has not met since 2024, just based on trying to kind of find new content. And so at the work session, the council was talking about perhaps a consideration of moving back to a more formal Parks Commission. There was also an option related to a resident advisory group, kind of playing off the Parks Advisory Group name and kind of broadening that, and kind of by happenstance, because there was a move to that one meeting to this meeting, I started thinking a little bit about that. The city has had a history, this is editorial, but of trying to kind of, a lot of cities will call them like residence academies or citizens academies. I know we've had two dedicated attempts that, after a year have kind of petered out just because the participation hasn't been there. And so would just offer as a conversation starter that we don't seem to have a lot of success with like informal groups, but we do have success as a city with formal groups and routine. So I would just offer of a conversation starter to the council of reconciling, like, what do you want this group to do, and how do you want it to be configured, and then we can build a plan that meets your needs. Discuss.
So,
I think I was leaving off when we were at the last one. Would you mind if I just added one
Sure,
more?
go ahead.
So my final, because in the last one, we were talking, and the things I talked about, the advisory group as compared to the commission and the roles. And then my other one was because I had said, a lot of it was being handled by planning commission now. That's another one I wanted to throw out. Like, is it just appropriate that we have the planning commission handle that stuff now? Does it need to be separated? I was more in favor of a more structured commission than advisory group, and having more focus groups for specific projects that might fall all over the board. But maybe when we look at structure, maybe that doesn't, maybe it means Parks Commission, maybe it means it just lands in the Planning Commission now. That was just one of my, kind of my last thought in our discussion before.
What I was gonna say, in the way that you kind of like teed it up, and the lens that I'm kind of looking at this through, and the way that I kind of looked at the Parks Advisory Group to some extent was that, you know, with the Chaska Herald going away, we've never had a harder time to tell our story and to talk about the work that not only the 5 of us do, but also the 21 employees that we have that are doing at the city level, and kind of what we do and what's going on. And I think by getting a group of folks who are interested and maybe are new to our community and want to get involved and want to meet people, by bringing them in and having them opine on topics and provide us feedback and weighing in on different issues, I think it's a good way of having folks. And I think the thought was, certainly with the Parks group, was that not only will Christy be involved, but maybe she'll tell her neighbor Kayla, who will tell her neighbor Dave, who will, you know, keep spreading the word and will help us talk about what we do a little bit more, so that when there's a major road project, nobody's surprised. So I don't have an issue. I wanna do whatever we can to hear from more residents and to get more residents involved in the work that we do. So whatever we call it, I guess I don't care, but I wanna get folks involved.
So when you say whatever we call it, so if it went back to a commission style, then we would have to appoint again, like the Planning Commission?
Okay, maybe I don't wanna call it a commission, cause I want this to be open for 4 people or 40.
Okay, so that's your preference, is to have it, whatever the name is, we'll just call it on the advisory scale.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Kayla?
I, like the mayor said, I am also in favor of anything that gets more people involved, whatever that looks like. I think that in my ideal world, I would like to see project-specific focus or task groups dealing with individual projects, because those tend to draw more people out than kind of a generic thing, and then have the formal approval process go through Planning Commission. That would be how I would like to see it structured, get as much input as we can from as many people as possible as the projects come up, and that would prevent some of this, how do we meet regularly with an organization that doesn't have necessarily something to do all the time. Plus, like I said, people get really passionate one way or the other, good or bad, about individual projects, and having an outlet for that, I think, would be really important. So that would be my preferred way to go forward with it. That being said, I am a fan of anything that gets more citizens involved and more citizens, like Courtney said, hearing our story, but also being able to opine on the direction that the city's going.
Excuse me.
Eric?
So I share, my concern was just addressed by Brent. I think when it is a formal, structured board, there is some commitment comes with that. I think when it's voluntary, you get potentially more people coming for the first meeting, but I think then you have a sharp drop off. And, you know, Christy, you mentioned this earlier, we're a bigger town, and we are just going to get bigger, and I think maybe it is time to look at a more formalized, structured board. But we need the commitment to be there, whether it happens to be something that you're really passionate about or you're not, your opinion still matters, and you still need to weigh in on that, just like we do. So I would be in favor of going back to a structured board for this. That's how I feel about it.
Like a commission?
Well, so the park board was did we do that by appointment, or did we?
So that wasn't really one of the options that we're discussing.
Yeah.
Well, they may not be written here, but that doesn't mean as a council we can't discuss that as an option, because we can discuss any of the options we want.
Sure, absolutely. I just, like, there was a really clear reason why the park board went away. There wasn't.
Enough work for them, right?
At the time, yes.
Yeah.
Do we think we have enough now? Do we think there's enough in flight?
No, because this Parks Advisory Group withered on the vine because there wasn't enough for them.
Even if it's quarterly? Okay.
All right, well, I'm gonna,
In 18 months.
So I have,
Yeah.
I think too, like, we might
Okay,
be,
wait, can we just,
yeah, sorry.
I wanna, stop jumping on Eric. Just- I want,
Yeah.
just, let's give him a second to finish his
Okay,
thoughts.
well, I mean, that was my thought. I just,
Okay.
I worry that if it isn't formalized with something scheduled at maybe biannually, I don't know that, the volunteers drop out, interest drops, it wanes, and we end up, with no participants. But if there truly isn't enough in the pipeline, if we don't have enough, to weigh in on or deliberate, and I think I asked about that early on, then, well, then we're just throwing some noodles at the wall, I guess, and hoping some people stick and wish to do it, on an on-demand basis. I guess I would prefer, an appointed park board, even if it's a biannual meeting, but maybe that isn't, I don't know enough to, say that's the appropriate way forward. I really believe to get serious weigh-in, serious deliberation, and a commitment to show up, you need that. That's
after
all.
Lori's, could we talk, Aaron, about what's coming up on the docket the next year or two?
Go ahead, Lori.
I don't see a need for a really structured board. I would want some consistency in scheduling, so maybe it's, once a quarter, so 4 times a year. Couple reasons, like I feel like there isn't enough work for truly just park and rec. I think too, our city's unique in that we have a lot of plans, like we have direction on what's gonna be programmed, and a lot of that is driven too by the funding source. And so it's hard to ask somebody, oh, what do you want us to do? And be like, well, no, actually we've already been working on this for 18 months. So I don't know that we are at a spot where their opinions would be valuable or that we'd be making changes. But, so that they're not going to, like, come to a consensus and approve of something or give a recommendation, but rather just a advisory that's not just coming and saying like what their opinion is, but what their neighbors or their other relative that lives in the community or somebody they know, just a lot more just community engagement, and that they can speak for their friends or, their colleagues or like others that, maybe aren't just next door, but like that are, residents. I think too how much I value and the city invest in the survey. So to me, that's a little bit like that too, just being able to always have a pulse on the community's opinions. And sometimes it helps us see something from a different perspective or maybe change the direction on a project or add something. So that's where I'm at, a advisory once a quarter.
Brent, were you
Okay.
trying to say something?
I was just gonna offer, I think, again, this is all editorial, because there's not a right or wrong way to do it, but it could be a both and, like you can, for example, in the public services building, we can form an advisory group and meet once or twice and kind of add to the process. And then just thinking back to, whether it's the commission or advisory on the park side, I think looking back, it was the expectation that group meet every month. That caused some concerns, so maybe if those, the Parks Commission used to meet every month, and then, so if you change the cadence, but there are always gonna be things that, like, the Parks Commission can meet, but I do think, not to take a position, but like Councilmember Person brings up a good point, that we've had, when we don't provide enough, form, and we don't know what they're gonna be talking about, we do, like, this drop-off becomes steep. So So add that to the ingredients of the things you're talking about. But there, like the comp plan, the landing, there, are, you know, Riverside Park, there are things to talk about.
Before we get started, Lori, I thought about, I was listening to the comments that you had, and you said, for the advisory, but then you said I want it structured to be quarterly, which actually falls on the commission side of this conversation we're having. So I guess I'm not understanding the advisory to me appears to be more of a task oriented, right? So we have the landing, we're gonna grab the landing, and that's the one we're gonna work on. But if you say that we have the advisory group, but they're structured to meet quarterly, that actually falls on the commission, because now it falls into that structured lineup. So I wanna make sure I understand where you're coming from on this.
So, thank you for asking. I can clarify. By structure, I just mean a cadence of meetings, so that somebody knows when they're gonna meet again, and it just keeps the traction, gets some traction and keeps the engagement there. So,
That was our goal with the Parks Advisory Group. The goal was quarterly, and we ran out of things pretty quickly. So like, we could have kept meeting, but it was us kind of racking our brain to say, like, what could we get this group together to talk about?
Yeah.
And then in those groups, like the mayor mentioned, like, it was a really great engaged group of people, and we would do Q&A at the end, and they would be asking questions about the budget and City Hall and the Public Services Department. Like, the goal was to convene them to talk about parks, and they wanted to talk about everything besides parks, which was fine, and it was a forum to take information and feedback. But that was our position of creating a broader group. Like, could we touch more topics instead of just saying, how do you feel about the landing for a couple of meetings? And the commitment to quarterly, like, I agree, I wanted that cadence to have some accountability, to have the group get to know each other, build relationships, but it just got tricky pretty quick.
Well, it is,
There was also, sorry.
no, go ahead.
There
No,
was
go ahead.
also like a very thoughtful, like, we don't wanna, just like we do with any of the commissions, we're not gonna meet just to meet because it's the third Thursday or whatever it is. We wanted to be respectful of everybody's time, and if there wasn't a big thing or something that would take an hour, to discuss, we could have a meeting once a month if it was a 10-minute meeting, but that's not a good use of anybody's time. So.
Yeah, we certainly, with the commissions we have now, if there's nothing on the agenda, there's no reason to meet to say hi to each other. But we did have we had less drop-off, it sounds like, when we had a voting commission, right? Because you come there, it's structured, you vote on an item, you research it, you hear all the information, and then you vote on it so that it moves on to whether planning commission or council or wherever the next step is. So I also want community engagement. To me, that looks more of a task force or a focus group, and a parks commission, maybe something that is needed again. But I asked you a question, and so I want to make sure that I give you the chance to answer what I asked you. So we asked you, like, what's coming up now in the next couple of years that you could see a Parks Commission working on, taking those items out of the hands of what the Planning Commission's been reviewing? What would the Parks, as a true Parks Commission, work on?
I would say the comp plan is probably going to be the heaviest lift, but I don't think we've put together what that group looks like. So in the previous iteration, the Planning Commission and City Council were a task force for the comp plan. I think that there was benefit to that, but I think there was also, we were kind of in a vacuum, that it was folks that know this information, like understand the process. Like, there wasn't as much education through that process because it was the Planning Commission and City Council who understand this so day in and day out. So I would say that will be a big piece of it, but I think that we probably need to determine like what the overall outreach plan is for the comp plan in totality, instead of just saying like, we'll have this group of 7 residents work only on the parks. I think there's benefit to saying we're gonna have 50 residents look at all of it instead of like just doing a specific group to do the parks portion of the plan. Otherwise, the landing is gonna be the next probably, depending on the Mount Hope project, how things shake with some projects that we have coming up, I'd say the landing, starting that planning is gonna be the next project.
What do you think for the first, when do you think the first, something the Parks Commission could have in the south side of town, southwest?
2029 at the very earliest.
So, we're struggling with this. Like, we are clearly struggling with this. Are we trying to come up with a solution for a problem that we don't have? Or do we want to give this some thought and shelve it for 3 months and come back to it in April of next year? Because we're not, like, Kayla and I might be the closest on this, but I'm still not sure that we're like on the same, like, of completely like mind on this. Like, we're struggling. And we're getting in a little bit of a circular discussion. I am not getting the idea from staff that we need to have an idea and solve this by the first of the year.
Right, I mean, the advisory group is still not meeting,
Yeah.
so nothing bad is happening. It's a strategic initiative for a conversation, so it's been teed up. You have the background, and we can schedule it for a work session at the end of March, first part of April.
I prefer sometime, I mean, we're starting to get kind of warm in April and we start thinking parks and plants and that, maybe just bump it up a little bit closer, maybe like early in March. Or we could,
Snowiest meeting in March?
yes, yes, looking at, or, I mean, I guess I kind of think I know where I land and I don't know if everyone else does and we wanna just hash and see where the chips fall, or we can wait too. I'm fine with, I mean, I guess I'm fine with either.
I would be in favor of discussing it again after the first of the year sometime, especially with the lead up to the comp plan. I think that this is, engagement in general is an important conversation as we get prepared for comp plan. But I don't think that we have any sort of consensus as a council right now, and so some more consideration needs to be done.
So we could schedule it for the first meeting in February, but then for now, just say, like, we're not moving forward with the Parks Advisory Group. Am I hearing that? That it'd be whatever it is, or whatever it's not gonna be that same thing? Am I hearing that, or am I hearing pause on everything till the first meeting in February?
So the decision is it a voluntary advisory board that we say, please come and discuss? Or is it a commission that you're appointed to and you come and meet quarterly or biannually? That's where we're stuck? Is that where we're stuck?
That's where I feel we're stuck.
Okay.
But I don't know, that's what I'm.
So one other, and it's a little self-serving from a city standpoint, having a commission and having people engaged and knowing when you're showing up and what you're gonna talk about, that's a good nurturing environment to have people eventually fill our seats and to go to the planning commission. When I was a kid with Christie on the Park and Rec Board.
No, you're all kids, they're all same.
But, that is what led to planning commission, and that's what led here. And I often think there's value in just having that structure and that entry into participation in city government. And that's a pretty low-level commitment if it's quarterly or biannually. So that's another reason for me wanting to see that be a commission. But if I may be the only one here that thinks that, so I'm not gonna die on this vine. If voluntary is the easy way to go because we're trying to solve for a problem that we really don't have, I'm not gonna stand up for that.
My concern with going to an appointment is that the more things we appoint people to, the fewer residents are able to voice their opinion. And we all of us have biases about who gets appointed to those boards. And if we want a broader voice from more of our residents who are passionate about more projects, lowering that bar to entry, removing the appointment process, removing our own biases from it, I think leads to a more robust conversation.
I totally agree, if they show up for the second and third time.
So, just in my experience with the Parks Advisory Group, I don't know that we had too much drop-off. I bet we had a dozen people playing pickleball at our last meeting. At our first meeting, I bet we had a dozen I bet we had roughly the same amount of people when we met in Ironwood Park to preview that. I agree with Kayla in that if we appoint people to a commission, that will be 5 to 7 people, and that's it. And I don't know how that commission structure would, it would be the catch-all commission or, you know, something, cause if we do a advisory group, my new neighbor can come with me to the April meeting. You know, like, it's not formal in terms of who can come. The more the merrier. We'll have the opportunity to engage more people. And it's not, you know, those folks too can potentially get involved on the planning commission and fill our seats and kind of be our long-term planning process for who's gonna be sitting in these seats after us. But I think it's a little bit easier way of getting more people involved. I don't think we need more commissions and more commissioners, just because I have seen, I remember being at one particularly painful planning commission meeting where Aaron did,
Parks Commission.
or I'm sorry, Parks Commission.
Plan Commission is great.
Yeah. Yes, one really painful Parks Commission meeting where they were determining what was gonna go into Ironwood Park and no decisions could be made. So I that's my bias of why we don't need to bring that group back. That, and Aaron just said, there literally will not be any work for that group. Some work in 27, I'm hearing you say, some work
Yeah.
in 29, but it's.
And it
gonna be
wasn't
few
in
and
an-
far between.
It wasn't decision-making in an argumentative way. It was sometimes pulling teeth to get them to say anything
Yeah.
to me at all.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, do you like this project? And we wouldn't get feedback from the group, which, I don't know, I don't think we can say that it was just the group of people, because I think we had a pretty diverse group of appointments.
We had 7 people.
Yeah.
So could we just try, if there's opportunities to engage the Parks Advisory Group on some of these new topics, we try that, and then we see where we're at the end of 26? Or do you wanna talk about it in February?
Can I add one thing too, that, I just wanna make sure folks, kinda recall when we transitioned away from the park board, we removed that provision from the ordinance, and then we didn't put this Parks Advisory Group, we didn't formalize it as an ordinance, because city committees, boards, commissions, if they're created formally and you're making appointments and these people are, you know, something more than what we have now with this advisory group, you're subjecting them to the open meeting law. They can't meet without a quorum, staff has to notice all their meetings, it's a kind of a different, makeup legally, that they have to then adhere to things. Not to say that's right or wrong, in terms of how you wanna do it, but just keep in mind that there's a distinction between these two types of groups that you're talking about, and it means a lot from staff's perspective. You know, if you're actually formalizing a committee or a park board like we used to have, that's gonna just create a bunch of rules and laws that staff has to keep track of, which again is okay, but we purposely created an informal Parks Advisory Group that sort of operates a lot differently than a formal Parks Board. That's what that group is now, that's sort of dwindling, so just food for thought.
Okay, I think everyone knows here that my preference is the commission, would to go back to the commission style that we used to have. I am willing to go through 2026, knowing we're gonna start some of these projects and seeing what that engagement looks like from the Parks Advisory Board, Advisory Group. But what I would really like to see then is that I want to see some real outcomes come out of this group before things get to planning commission. Because if we're going to have a Parks Advisory Group, then I think the ideas, the things that come out of them need to be structured in a way that is those are recommendations that go to the planning commission. I'm not saying that's the way it wasn't being done. I just think if we're going to go outside of this commission, I wanna see in the next year what this Parks Advisory Board really can accomplish and how that looks, as it fits into all of our other city commissions and groups.
So, but I think what we're saying is there's not enough park stuff for a Parks Advisory Group. We haven't met in 18 months, there's no parks work.
Right, but Aaron's saying that we have some coming up on the docket. We have a comprehensive plan with a park master plan that's getting redone. And is that starting this
normally
next?
goes to planning commission.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to what we want, like if we want a task force, if we want it to be residents, like what engagement for the comp plan overall looks like. Like I've started to think about what the first round looks like, and I have created a list of like 60 folks that I'm hoping to send a postcard to do the first round of a survey for, just to say, just to get some feedback about the comp plan and the process. And every one of the Parks Commission members are included on that, and that's 20-ish members of that group. So I think the goal is to continue to engage with those folks because they are excited about the city and what we're working on, and they want to learn more about it. But you're right, I don't think I could convene a group of 20 people one time and say, what do you want to see in the landing, and have that be meaningful enough to change the decision that we make at a planning commission or a city council level.
And that group isn't used to that, like the, what you described, Councilmember Conrad, is more like a commission would be. They're not, they're not set up to give recommendations, or
Okay.
we don't take minutes at those meetings. It's kind of supposed to be like, get them out of the PowerPoint and out of the boardroom and do some fun things, so we can do that, but we'd have to change kind of the mission
What
of
it looks
that
like?
group.
Okay. Well, then I guess I am still on the commission side, because I thought we could structure it, but that just doesn't work, or doesn't function that way.
It doesn't function that way today, but again, this is why you're having that conversation, so we can punt till February, or whatever the council tells us you'd like to do.
I really like the idea of the resident advisory group. Cause I think it's just, and it could be the same folks as the Parks Advisory Group, it's just putting a different name on it and broadening their scope. So if we wanted to talk about, what do we do with this tree money, maybe that's not a great example, but like exploring, you know, when the
So-
Merriam Junction Trail project opens up, going for a bike ride where we explore trails, talking about trail connections.
So Christie, good to do that till 2026, end of 26?
Yes.
Okay, I'm good to do that. Let's not punt. Let's make a decision.
Yeah. I don't want to talk the same thing in February, so
Yeah.
let's just
Okay.
do it.
So,
I'd
Okay.
support that through 2026 as well.
Alright,
The Parks Advisory Group.
The Parks Advisory Group expanding into a resident advisory group. So broadening their scope slightly, but maintaining the structure
pretty
as
much
it
what
is.
you put in the memo.
Yep.
Okay,
so we'll revisit it in 2027.
got it.
Got it.
Okay.
And then,
Put it on your calendar, Brent, for this like thrilling conversation in a year.
So, okay, now, the second part of this was the alternate commissioner designation, so, Brent, do you just wanna tee that up again, are we deciding
yeah,
if
so
we're doing 5, 7?
the impetus of that way back when was the city was having trouble getting planning commissioners to attend and have a quorum. Traditional, you know, in most cities, probably without, maybe there's some exceptions, but a planning commission is 5 members. You probably have examples where there's 7 or 9, just like councils, but predominantly 5. And so the idea, again, predating me, was to add 2 alternates, that if someone couldn't come, but kind of expanded the ability to meet that quorum status. And so these alternates attend meetings, can participate, but can't vote unless a formal board appointee is voted. I would offer the downside to that. Even though there's all those benefits, the downside to that is sometimes I would offer that there's limited participation from the alternates because they don't feel as part of the board. And then, a lot of additional process when you have someone who's the second alternate wants to move to the first alternate, or the first alternate wants to become a full board member. Cause that, you obviously can tell then it means something where an alternate doesn't wanna remain an alternate, they want to have a voice. And so, in looking at the data doesn't suggest that we have a problem getting quorum, so it's a matter of, do you want to continue that, which you can. Sometimes it's, is it a solution in search of a problem? It works, but to what degree do you think it's successful, or do you want to change it? Again, this is an opportunity to look in the mirror and see if you like what you see.
Who feels strongly on this one?
I can start.
Go ahead.
I have served on boards that have quorum problems. Business doesn't get done. We don't have that problem right now, but that does not mean we won't have that problem in the future. And as a growing city with lots of projects going through on a fairly rapid pace, I would be deeply concerned if we started running into quorum problems, especially on the Planning Commission, but also on HPC as kind of like with our roads. When problems happen, they start small, but they escalate very, very quickly. So if we have a resident who needs to get into the HPC for some reason, we need to be able to address that in a timely manner. I am very proud of our commissions as they stand right now, that they have not had a quorum problem, that they would not have had a quorum problem if we had moved to having alternates as full members. But I do not want to put us in the position where we cannot meet quorum going forward. And that is why I support them as they stand right now.
Would quorum for a 7-member commission be 4 people?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I agree with you, Kayla. I am happy as it stands. When I especially look at the HPC, now where we may not have, needed alternates in there to have the quorum, alternates attended because we didn't have the full commission here. So I think, and as I look at that, every single meeting looks like an alternate was seated, almost all of them. One might be here, wrong here, but, so for me, I would prefer to keep it as is with the alternates. I also, okay, so we know this, right? If we go from 5 and you go to 7, now you've got more people voting, so does it really solve a quorum issue? You just change the numbers, that's all. So to me, I'd rather keep it with alternates. We know it works, and it's working well, and they're still getting chances to have their voices heard at, they're welcome at all meetings, but there's a lot of times where it looks like they've been able to step in, so, as is for me.
This is a tough one. I see pros and cons to both. I think of that statement, are we trying to solve for a problem we don't have? But also, let's be prepared for, not being in a situation where we don't have quorum. So, yeah, I feel like I can't really give clear direction because I see pros and cons of both.
Okay, Eric?
I like having the alternates. I also think they're the people that we consider when we have open seats and appointments, so I don't see a need to change.
I feel like this is if it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. But what you said about not having a quorum, I have felt that pain too, and that's a really strong argument. So I am in favor of keeping 5 and 2 alternates. So, all right.
That took a lot less time.
Okay, let's keep going on this good momentum and talk about 2026 council appointments. Ms. Good.
I hope we answered your questions clearly, Brent.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give a whirl this way. It's not exactly set up on this screen the same, but, okay. I think I can get in here. So at the beginning of each year, the city council is required to adopt a resolution for organization, where the council designates an official newspaper and depository, and then it annually elects an acting mayor, assigns members to board and committee duties, and appoints individuals to perform various responsibilities within the organization. Since there are no changes to the council seating, there was no election this year and there's no changes, we have the opportunity tonight to discuss this, and then we can, if we reach a consensus, this can be brought back to the January 5th meeting on the consent agenda. So what I have here is the positions, where we'll look for designations for people to serve on the various positions. In red, I have highlighted who was appointed to that position in 2025 to help with the discussion. So in 2026, we'll need to designate an acting mayor, someone to the Heritage Preservation Commission. I crossed it off. Parks, used to be Parks Advisory, I added Resident Advisory Group, Planning Commission, the Southwest Transit Board, Southwest Transportation Alliance, 2 members to the Township Fire Board, and then the Carver Business Alliance. So at this point, I'd open it up for discussion amongst yourselves, and I can fill in the information as you work along.
All right. As far as I go, I would like to keep everything that I have, but I would be willing to give out the Southwest Transportation Alliance. And Lori, I see that you're
Yeah.
not on here. Would you like that?
I would, yeah. More than once, we've tried to get the quarterly, then it was twice a year county meeting, and it's just fizzled out. So, yeah, I don't have any commitments, so I would be happy to take that one.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I would love to stay acting mayor, because one time Courtney's gonna be gone. Like, it's gonna happen one time. I've been the acting mayor for so many years, but we got close, one meeting, that was, so, if everyone's okay with that. Yeah, one meeting we got close.
You got to say a few things. That meeting I had to take a phone call.
Is city attorney an opening?
Not
No.
for you.
Is there a deputy? That would just be kind of fun. Well, if there are no objections, I would continue with Southwest Transit.
Thank you. And I'm happy to stay where I'm at too, unless anyone feels really strongly about it.
Let's just go line by line. Christy, you want to stay with HPC?
I do.
Okay. Any objections? Speaking
Anybody
out.
else want?
No.
information?
Okay.
Objections?
I would like Resident Advisory Group. Any objections?
No.
Okay. Kayla, thoughts on Planning Commission?
I'm having a lot of fun.
Okay, any objections to Kayla's fun?
No, no,
Maybe
not when
there
you
will be
phrase
Kayla's
it that
because
way.
Too much
this
fun, I
year.
don't think that's.
Okay.
Now that I'm not pregnant, maybe there will be baked goods this year.
Okay, the next two are done. Township Fire Board, Christy and Eric, thoughts?
Very much want to stay on it.
It's such a burden, those 2 meetings a year. No, I'm happy to stay there, too.
Okay, any objections? Okay, Carver Business Alliance, I would like to keep that. Any objections? And then I think we're done. Right?
You are, everything else is completed, and this will come back.
Okay, and I think this group has always been good, but I wanna say it again, like, if you can't make a meeting, like, some of these are easier to hand off, like, Southwest Transit's a little bit of a lift to hand off, but if you can't make Planning Commission, if you can't, when you haven't been able to
Yeah.
make HPC, like, email Brent can ask all of us, or phone a friend and see if somebody else can take it, cause I think, these are important enough that I like to see all those meetings staffed whenever we can. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, up next is the draft 2026 legislative priorities, Mr. Merrick.
Well, my computer is doing a forced shutdown right now, so.
Fantastic.
Does that mean you do too?
No. So, there isn't much change. We did change the format, so annually the city council does a legislative priorities. One of the priorities related to, remote council meetings, remote participation during council meetings has been resolved for the most part. So I did take that off and did engage with, Southwest Transit staff, to add that. I would offer a kind of a hot topic, related to legislative priorities. The language has stayed the same. I did include the League of Minnesota Cities has policies, so it kind of runs the gamut on kind of all city services and kind of where municipal law intersects with state policies and legislation. So happy to take any feedback, and we can prepare as you see fit for a final draft of the legislative priorities. We do send the final version out to Senator Gruenhagen and Representative Harder, and then use that as a template for discussion on City's Day at the Capitol. It's usually in March, I think, so.
I don't have any additional thoughts or edits. I really like the new layout, and I love the incorporation of the pictures. I think, I was just looking at this levee one, the picture of that house off of, that's probably Main Street, right?
Mhm.
If we can just like get a little
Yeah.
bit more flood in that picture, because when I just took a look at it, I was like, oh, I wonder why that house is in there. And my eye didn't see the flood waters. If there's just
More flood.
yeah, how about more flood?
Less
But
purple.
I think this is great. The one thing, and Brent, I was gonna talk to you about this offline, but, I would love to see us get a little bit more formal in the sharing of our legislative priorities. My suggestion would be that we invite Senator Gruenhagen, Representative Harder, and Commissioner Fahey to one of our meetings in January, so that we can say, like, hey, and maybe we each take one of these, cause it looks like we just so happen to have 5 priorities where we kinda go down the line, and I'll take levy, but you know, like, we can say like, this is, and I think to have a little bit more of a hands-on, like, face-to-face approach, it would be great to see them here, period, full stop, but for us to kind of help show them why this is important to us in our own words, I think would be a benefit versus kind of just the approach that we've taken in previous years.
I support that.
So, and I don't think that the session starts until February this year, so hopefully they'd be able to join us at one of the meetings.
Did you, Commissioner Fahey as well, or, okay,
Yeah, cause remember last year we started sending it to him
okay.
as well, just,
Out of curiosity, what was the change to the law that's made it so that that's not one of our priorities anymore for the remote?
Sure, Mayor and Council, they removed the requirement where if you're gonna participate remotely, that you have to be in an open and accessible location and then explain where you are, or say where you are in the notice, so you can participate remotely from a location that isn't made open and accessible to the public.
So you no longer have to sit in the Holiday Inn lobby in the Republic of Georgia?
Correct.
Okay.
Although they've still made it, the same requirements still exist in terms of you have to be on video, you have to
Yeah.
see and hear everybody, so those things have remained, but the main thing, I think, was the complications related to that open and accessible requirement, so.
Wonderful. Thank you.
any other thoughts, comments?
No, looks good to me. Besides the
Okay.
picture that needs more water.
More flood.
Or another
Flood.
picture with more water, whatever it is.
Okay, and we're all on board for inviting our representatives?
Mhm. Yep.
Yes, okay. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm?
All right, city managers report.
Just one item, we closed on the public services property last Thursday, more or less. Thursday, Friday. But just want to give a shout out to our city attorney, Dave Anderson.
Am I still city attorney?
Yeah. Pending resolution. But no, seriously, anytime you buy property, but especially this one, there's just a lot of like little pieces that come up throughout the process, and Dave and their team always do a great job of bird dogging those and then coming back to say we've got it handled, which is great news to hear, so.
Thanks, Dave, well done.
Thanks for taking good care of us always. When it's, no one to pump our brakes.
All right, communications. Kayla, you wanna go first?
Nothing for general communications. I do have a question for Brent. Do we have a system or policy for removing snow from our dynamic speed signage? I was driving down Sixth Street to come here today, and the snow is blocking the solar panel,
Oh.
and so it is no longer functioning.
Yep, we can,
And I know we're putting more up, so
The
having
policy would
something figured
be-
out would be.
for me to text Paul and say.
I mean,
there.
I
the brush
probably
out,
could
brush
have
it
done
off,
it
yep.
from my minivan
Nope.
window with a snow brush,
Yep.
Fun to have Paul do it.
No, well,
but just kind
the
of keep an eye on
Imperial, we
those.
will take care of it.
Yeah, well, and like I said, just have an eye on it since I know we're putting more up, like
Yep.
Mount Hope Road and some of those other locations. Good to know.
Good comment, thank you.
Christie,
I don't have anything.
Lori,
No updates.
Eric.
No updates. Did we buy that vacuum truck?
We have not. I haven't received any updates since you last got an update, so
Okay.
guessing all signs point to no.
Oh, I was really looking forward to having that. Okay. That was it.
Christmas is coming up.
Christie.
I did actually have something. I had a resident ask me, and I just need a little bit clarification on our ordinance, and I didn't go look up the ordinance, so maybe if you know offhand, but, we have the, 2 inches of snowfall off the street, till plowed curb to curb. I got asked about during the daytime though, here in the business district, and, things like that, so you wanna go to Harvey's for lunch, but it's snowing out. Are you allowed to park on the street if there's over 2 inches?
Yes.
Okay, tell me, is it written about the business district, or is it just written, how's it written? Do we
It's-
know?
I
I know I'm asking you just to recall something from the big
I
ordinance.
can't recall it from memory. I know by practice that they don't, the only times I'm aware of them enforcing it is at night or early morning. They're not ticketing during the day
Right,
as people are like experiencing the snowstorm. So there's, I would offer that there's a certain amount of, you couldn't write an ordinance or policy to identify every situation. So, did someone say they got a ticket by being downtown?
no, their question was just kind of that preemptive, like, hey, we're gonna come down here on Saturday afternoon or Friday at lunch or whatever, and it's currently snowing, and the ordinance says 2 inches or above before being plowed curb to curb. What am I supposed to do? And I said, yeah, I'm gonna look into that, cause I'm
I
not
would
actually sure.
say like the answer would be that they're welcome to
Right,
park downtown.
but where's the cutoff? I mean, cause our ordinance probably doesn't state, I mean,
Yeah.
what's reasonable to say, okay, well, that's great, but then that one-off ticket at 7 PM, right?
No,
Then now,
Yeah, I think the ordinance has to be written in a way that is enforceable when you need to enforce it. That doesn't mean it's strictly enforced. To Brent's point, you can't write an ordinance that knows when the public works team is gonna be available to
Mhm.
plow every street. So we have to say, if 2 inches have accumulated, then you can't park your vehicle on a street until the street has been plowed. But I think what Brent's answer is implying is that staff uses reasonable judgment in enforcing the ordinances, and they're not gonna tow, let alone probably ticket vehicles unless it's there for a while. I mean, that's probably not something you wanna necessarily broadcast, other than to say, practice has been that, because the ordinance says if there's 2 inches, you shouldn't be parking on streets. That's what the ordinance says.
so I,
I
Tell
don't
them to
know what to tell you
continue
other
doing
than-
what they're doing. I mean,
okay.
we could really go down a rabbit hole of like, well, where's the cutoff at 4th Street or 3rd Street or like,
Right.
um,
And does it apply to neighborhoods too? So if I'm going to Aunt Jackie's house, right, and we're gonna have dinner, but I'm leaving at 7:30, can I park there on the
No.
street? No.
there's 2 or more inches of snow outside of the business district.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you, okay.
Where the business,
Jackie to let you park in her driveway.
I mean, we,
Move it over, Jackie.
not that you don't, or the conversation lends itself to not, the sheriff's office has done a really great job with that. We've never had, at least in my time, have never had an issue where they've drilled down to where they're trying to get somebody who just parked to get lunch at Harvey's or Lisa's, so.
Okay, thank you, I will
Yep.
relay all that.
Yeah,
good?
I'm good now.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right. Let's see, updates from me. On December 3rd and 4th, we did member visits with the League of Minnesota Cities. So over the course of 2 days, Luke Fisher, the executive director, Pierre Willette, one of the lobbyists, and I saw folks from Buffalo, St. Michael, Delano, Hanover, Rockford, Montrose, Motley, Staples, Park Rapids, Perham, Detroit Lakes, Vargan, New York Mills, Frazee, Ottertail, Long Prairie, Little Falls, Browerville, St. Augusta, Foley, Big Lake, Clearwater, and Becker. You don't have to put all of that in the minutes.
Various towns.
Various towns throughout the community, but it's really cool to go to different parts of the state and hear from folks and kind of hear what their pain points are and hear their successes and hear about what everybody's so proud of in their community. December 4th, we had a Carver County Mayor's meeting. We hosted it here at Mocha Monkey, and it was the mayors of Chaska, what did we have? Waconia, Cologne, and then me, I think. It might have been a smaller group that week. Carver Village Christmas was a hit on December 5th. That's where Santa arrives to City Hall in a fire truck, and all the kiddos love him, and it's the best Santa ever. And this year he told me I'm on the nice list, which is a little bit of a change, so I'm not sure what the difference is. That same night was the tree lighting. Carver on the Minnesota does a really great job with that. There were horse-drawn carriage rides, hot chocolate, s'mores, and a bonfire, and it was just the best of a small town and really, really special. There was a regional council of mayors meeting on December 8th, last Monday. On December 10th was the senior citizens luncheon that I volunteered at with the Lions, where they had 72 folks from our community. Yeah, which was
huge. Yeah.
it was huge. The village hall room was full, and part of the volunteering is you're giving out food, and you're like, ooh, we're gonna have food for everybody. But we did, and it was a good time. That same afternoon, I did BizTown interviews at La Academia, which is, you guys have heard me talk about that before. These kids are interviewing for roles at BizTown, where they could be mayor or they could be the CFO of the Minnesota Wild or different groups. So it's cool to hear folks, like 5th graders, try to sell themselves and to interview.
Do they know what they're gonna be applying for before they go in?
They give you their application and they have their top 3 choices. So it's
Okay.
like a DJ at a radio show, marketing, and like BizTown is through Junior Achievement, and they kind of very clearly have some corporate sponsorship. So
Okay.
it'll be like really specific, like the Affinity Plus credit group,
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah,
And
gotcha.
I don't think that that's a sponsor, but
Sure.
like they're really very specific, and it's like, okay, cafe manager, and it's cool to hear these kids say like, well, I'm a good friend, so I think I'd be a really great cafe manager because I like helping people, and like just taking like skills and making them transferable. So it's fun to see them. And then last but not least on here, last Thursday night we did Shop with a Hero at Fleet Farm, which was so fun. It was the first year that I actually got to shop with a kiddo. Generally I just kind of come and help wrap the gifts, but it was one of those perfect storm nights where there was a bunch of stuff going on and we didn't have enough heroes. So there were 5 kids. Fleet Farm gives them all a $100 gift card. The hardest part for the shopper is to figure out like the running tally of all of the gifts and make sure that you keep it under $100. But we had a really great time. And thanks to Fleet Farm for doing that. It's such a nice thing that they do for our community. So that is it for me. That is it for our meetings in 2025. I wish everybody a happy holiday. To staff, thank you all so much for all of your hard work. I really appreciate it. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Councilmember Pursuant,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Pasco. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Good evening.